Hey everyone, this is Heidi from the blog Hands Occupied with another knitting video tutorial for you. In this video, we're going to walk you through how to work a basic brioche stitch in knitting. To work the brioche stitch in knitting, you're going to need to cast on an even number of stitches. You might want to use a stretchy cast on. I just quickly cast on 10 stitches using a plain old long tail cast on for demonstration's sake for this video. So we've got 10 stitches here on our left hand needle. And for row 1, what we need to do to set up everything is we're going to slip the first stitch with our yarn in front. So the yarn needs to be toward our body. We slip that stitch with our yarn in front, and then we bring the yarn to the back of our work. And please note, I knit continental style, carrying my yarn in my left hand. So we've slipped with yarn in front, brought our working yarn between our needles to the back of our work. Then what we need to do all the way across our row until we get to the last stitch is knit 1, bring our yarn to the front, and do what's called a slip 1 yarn over. So you're doing kind of two things at once on top of each other. And this is kind of the crux of how brioche knitting works. So with the yarn in front, we are slipping 1 stitch purlwise and yarning over at the same time. And so our right needle is inserted into the front of the next stitch on our left hand needle for the slip part of this slip 1 yarn over. And then the yarn over happens at the same time on top of that stitch we are slipping. So we're creating kind of an X when we make a slip 1 yarn over. So we slip that over, and so now it looks like there's 2 loops on our right hand needle. But since this is brioche, I'll show you in a moment how we work those together. Next, we're going to repeat. So with the yarn back now, we knit 1, like normal. Then with the yarn toward our body or in front of our work, we're going to do a slip 1 yarn over. So we're slipping this stitch purlwise and yarning over at the same time. Again, knit 1, and then with our yarn in front, we slip 1 and yarn over at the same time. And then for one last time, knit 1, slip 1 yarn over, and you can see how when you get used to this, it becomes its own fluid motion. And we end this row with an easy knit 1 stitch, like this. So right now it looks like we've sloppily increased a bunch of stitches, but what we've actually done is our setup row for our brioche rib stitch. Now we're going to turn to the wrong side of our work. Or really, more accurately, the other side of our work, because in brioche rib, if you're doing 1 color brioche rib, it's reversible, which I'll show you in just a moment how that works. So for row 2, we are going to slip 1 with our yarn in front and bring that working yarn to the back. Now we are at our first X. So this is what the other side of those slip 1 yarn overs look like when we turn to the other side of our work. So what we need to do is something called a BRK or a bark, which is a brioche knit stitch. So a bark or brioche knit involves inserting your needle into both loops of yarn at the same time. So it's like a knit 2 together, except you're working through more of an X instead of 2 stitches that are resting parallel to each other. So working through both those stitches, we knit them together, and that is a brioche knit. So that yarn over is running over on top and behind of the stitch we just knit. And that's how you create a brioche knit stitch. Next, what we're going to do is a slip 1 yarn over like before. So we bring our working yarn to the front and do a slip 1 yarn over. You know you're doing this in the right place if you see a purl bump. So that little knot looking thing at the base of this stitch, that is what I mean by a purl bump. So again, we're going to slip 1 yarn over like before. Then we're going to repeat our brioche knit and slip 1 yarn over all the way across the row until we get to the last stitch. So inserting our needle into the next 2 loops, we'll brioche knit, sweep that off and bring the working yarn to the front so we can slip 1 yarn over into the next stitch. It's worth noting that for the slip one yarn over, let me put this loop back, you're just slipping one loop while yarning over at the same time for that second loop. Again, brioche knit into the next stitch, yarn in front, slip one yarn over. Then we're going to brioche knit, yarn in front to slip one yarn over, and we'll finish out this row by knitting one. So that's pretty easy once we get the hang of it. And now what we've got to do is just repeat row 2 until we have one row remaining. So I'm going to show you how to do row 2 one more time just so you can see it again, and then I'll show you how to do that last row before the bind off. So before I do that, let's take a look at this complete swatch of brioche knit stitches. So you can see here that this is very, very stretchy, and it is reversible on both sides. And so brioche knitting, kind of like brioche bread, is known for its fluffy and lush texture. Brioche rib, which is this, when it's worked flat, the only brioche stitch you need to know how to do is a brioche knit, and then you need to understand the mechanics of doing a slip one yarn over to successfully complete it. And if you look closely at brioche rib, you can see that there's just a lot more three-dimensionality in the rib than a plain knit one, purl one rib. So it's a fun one to try, and brioche knitting is very popular these days, and it's a fun one to learn because it gives you a chance to practice with a bunch of unique patterns. So let me show you how to work row 2 one more time, and then I'll show you the last row that you'll work before the bind off in brioche rib. Okay. So we've turned our work to the other side, and we're going to repeat row 2. So what we've got to do, again, is start by slipping one stitch with the yarn in front. Bringing our working yarn to the back, we're going to brioche knit one stitch and slip one yarn over. So just like before, we've got to look for the X where our previous row slip one yarn over slip one yarn over has created this X. And working into both loops of the X, we brioche knit. Then we bring the working yarn to the front, and we slip one yarn over into the next stitch that has the purl bump to look at. So that's how you know you're working in the right stitch. Brioche knit, slip one yarn over. Brioche knit, with the yarn in front, we do our slip one yarn over. And when you do the slip one yarn over, it automatically brings your working yarn back to the back, which is kind of nice when you get used to the rhythm of it. Brioche knit, and then yarn in front, slip one yarn over, and we'll finish with an easy knit one. So that's row 2 again, and you'll notice row 2 is the row that you keep working until you're ready to do the last row before your bind off. So for this bind off, all we've got to do is slip one with yarn in front, brioche knit one, but instead of doing a slip one yarn over on this next stitch, we're just going to purl one. So we're going to repeat brioche knit, purl one, brioche knit, purl one, brioche knit, purl one, and then for that last stitch we will knit. And then that's it. Then all you've got to do is bind off all of your stitches using ideally a stretchy bind off since brioche is so stretchy, and you've got yourself some one color brioche rib knit flat. Brioche is so popular these days that this stitch is the gateway stitch to get you brioching like crazy. If you have any questions for us, go ahead and reach out in the comments or tune in again soon for more video tutorials.